President Trump is delaying the imposition of tariffs on Europe after striking a deal involving Greenland. Yes, we're hearing that the United States is getting Greenland, at least a portion of it. Trump says the details of the agreement will be released soon. The mainstream media is in full meltdown mode just 2 hours after Trump's Davos address, as word breaks that a deal has been reached. It was being called the speech of the year, and it didn't disappoint. We've got some of the highlights, but the deal will be made public fairly soon, and it delivers everything we were looking for. When asked, does this mean the United States is acquiring Greenland? The president said, no, we're not going to be acquiring it. However, the agreement grants the U.S. sovereignty over small pockets of Greenland to establish military bases, an arrangement Denmark has reportedly already approved. After the agreement, the president withdrew his tariff threats, triggering a major market rally. The New York Times reported the deal was reached during a NATO meeting involving President Trump, NATO Secretary Rutte, and senior military officials from member states, where they discussed a compromise under which Denmark would grant the U.S. sovereignty over limited areas of Greenlandic land where the U.S. could build bases. Sovereignty essentially means it becomes American territory. The Times noted the deal is comparable to the United Kingdom's bases in Cyprus, which are treated as British territory. So after a week of nonstop hyperbole, Democrats and the press panicking that this is the end of U.S. hegemony, the end of NATO, that World War III is here, and all the rest, they look pretty foolish right now, especially since we've watched the same routine play out again and again. Trump is a deal maker. This is how he negotiates. He applies leverage. And now, because of that, we're on the verge of gaining new American territory in Greenland.
The deal, I think it's going to be a very good deal for the United States, also for them. And we're going to work together on something having to do with the Arctic as a whole, but also Greenland. And it has to do with the security, great security, strong security, and other things.
The market, 600 points, getting back a lot of some of the nervousness we had in the last couple of days. The tariffs are off. Nothing happens on February 1st.
No, we took that off because it looks like we have pretty much a concept of a deal.
A deal of ownership, a deal...
Well, it's a little bit complex, but we'll explain it down the line. But the Secretary General of NATO and I and some other people were talking, and it's the kind of a deal that I wanted to be able to make.
Where does Denmark, did they weigh in on what they want, what they would agree to?
Well, I assume they did because he very much represents, he's a strong leader. Mark, you know Mark Rutte. And he... I assume he's been speaking to them. He's been speaking to all of them.
Are mineral rights involved? Is ownership involved? Did the Golden Dome sway people?
I don't want to say yet, but...
The Golden Dome was very compelling today when you talked about that.
Yeah, the Golden Dome, and they're going to be involved in the Golden Dome, and they're going to be involved in mineral rights, and so are we.
It's not specific enough to know at this point how long this lasts, whether it's...
Forever.
Forever.
It'll be forever.
For Greenland at this point.
Yeah. Forever.
That's staggering.
That's better than a 99-year.
This is what, 2 hours after.
It's better than the Obama deal with the famous Iran nuclear deal.
What was billed as Trump's speech of the year this morning, delivered in Davos, Switzerland at the WF at the World Economic Forum, the president didn't hold back as he tore into the globalist leaders in the crowd. He explained to them and to the world why Greenland is such a key priority. He said it has nothing to do with rare earths and nothing to do with critical minerals. He framed it as a matter of U.S. security. He also called out Canada's Prime Minister and French President Macron as basically stone-cold losers. Watch.
To be defending Canada. Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful also, but they're not. I watched your Prime Minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful. But they should be grateful to us. Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements. Emmanuel Macron, I watched him yesterday with those beautiful sunglasses. What the hell happened? No, Donald, I will not do that. I said, yes, you will, 100%. He said, no. You're asking me to double. I said, Emmanuel, you've been taking advantage of the United States for 30 years with prescription drugs. You really should do it and you will do it. I have no doubt. In fact, I am 100% sure you're going to. No, I will not do it. Because yes, in all fairness, Jim, he has to double or triple. Because the world being a bigger place than the United States, it's not that you meet in the middle. You just have to go up some, and we come down a lot. They go up a little, we come down a lot. So we're at $130, they're at 10. So they may have to go to 20 or 30. No more than that. I said, Emmanuel, you're going to be doubling or tripling? No. I said, here's the story, Emmanuel. The answer is you're going to do it, you're going to do it fast. And if you don't, I'm putting a 25% tariff on everything that you sell into the United States and a 100% tariff on your wines and champagnes. And that's about 10 times more than what I'm requesting. And you're going to do it. I don't want to go public with it.
Trump reinforced his message in the speech that the West needs to grow stronger and defend its culture. He kept returning to the idea of a shared culture. We are the descendants of explorers, of conquerors, pioneers. When did it become wrong to take pride in our history? When did we become forced to apologize for our history, for our ancestors? We have shared ancestors, the United States, Europe, the UK. We are Americans. This is America, the land of the free. This era of suicidal empathy is officially over. That was essentially the core of his speech. Trump tried to remind Europe today, and the UK as well, that this is who you are, too. We are the product of Europe. And if you don't get your houses in order, if you don't stop unchecked migration and these suicidal empathetic policies, you won't be Europe for much longer. And the United States, Trump said, wants a strong Europe, not a weak one. We have no interest, he said, in allying with a Europe like that.
To do great. I want UK to do great. Sitting on one of the greatest energy sources in the world, and they don't use it. In fact, their electricity prices have soared 139%. There are windmills all over Europe. There are windmills all over the place, and they are losers. One thing I've noticed is that the more windmills a country has, the more money that country loses and the worse that country is doing. China makes almost all of the windmills, and yet I haven't been able to find any wind farms in China. Did you ever think of that? It's a good way of looking at it. They're smart. China's very smart. They make them, they sell them for a fortune. They sell them to the stupid people that buy them, but they don't use them themselves. They put up a couple of big wind farms, but they don't use them. They just put them up to show people what they could look like. They don't spin. They don't do anything. They use a thing called coal, mostly. But China goes with the coal. They go with oil and gas. They're starting to look at nuclear a little bit, and they're doing just fine. They make a fortune selling the windmills, though, and I think really that's one that they wouldn't be surprised if it stopped. They are shocked that it continues to go. They're very friendly with me. They're shocked that people continue to buy those damn things. They killed the birds. They ruin your landscapes. Other than that, I think they're fabulous, by the way. Stupid people buy them. The consequences of such destructive policies have been stark, including lower economic growth, lower standards of living, lower birth rates, more socially disruptive migration, more vulnerability to hostile foreign adversaries, and much, much smaller. Because Europe and those countries have to do their thing. They have to get out of the culture that they've created over the last 10 years. It's horrible what they're doing to themselves. They're destroying themselves. It's beautiful, beautiful places.
What people need to understand is that Greenland is about far more than just China and Russia, though they do matter here. China, for example, has two major rare earth mining fields in southern Greenland. One is called the Kiana Field, and the other is the Tanbreeze Field. One of these two large fields is currently for sale. It's on the market. And the biggest bidder right now is China. So yes, China is part of the equation. But this is also very much about the UK and Canada. Think about what we've seen over the past week. Who has made the biggest fuss about the US acquiring Greenland? It wasn't the Chinese. It wasn't the Russians, who supposedly threatened to send troops to Greenland to stop Trump from taking it. It wasn't Russia. We didn't see Chinese troops landing in Greenland. It was Europe. It was the UK. It was Canada. Permanent U.S. ownership of Greenland effectively subjugates the UK and Canada to the United States.
Smack in the middle
Look at the
between
map.
the UK
Look where
and
Greenland
Canada.
sits.
The Pentagon
right in the middle between the UK and Canada.
Greenland for
the Pentagon
a
has
century.
had Greenland
not
in
to
its
protect
sights for a
America
century.
from China or
Not
Russia
to defend
100
America
years
from
ago,
China
but to
or
protect
Russia
America
100 years
from
ago,
Britain.
but to
Look
defend
it up.
America
it's called the
from
Atlantic
Britain.
Strategic War
Look it up.
Plan, created
It's called the Atlantic Strategic War Plan, created by the United States Department of War back when the Defense Department was known as the Department of War. Coincidentally, Trump recently renamed it the Department of War. That plan, which you can find on Wikipedia, covers scenarios tied to a hypothetical war against the British Empire, with Canada serving as Britain's main proxy against the United States. In fact, Putin said today, regarding Greenland, it doesn't concern us at all. He added, Denmark can sell to the U.S. It's irrelevant to Russia's interest. So this starts making more sense when you hear Canada's Mark Carney yesterday saying the current world order has ruptured, basically losing his mind over Greenland. Why do you think that is? Watch what he said.
We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. Over the past 2 decades, a series of crises in finance, health, energy, and geopolitics have laid bare the risks of extreme global integration. But more recently, great powers have begun using economic integration as weapons. Tariffs as leverage, financial infrastructure as coercion, supply chains as vulnerabilities to be exploited. You cannot live within the lie of mutual benefit through integration when integration becomes the source of your subordination. The powerful have their power, but we have something too. The capacity to stop pretending, to name reality, to build our strength at home, and to act together. That is Canada's path. We choose it openly and confidently, and it is a path wide open to any country willing to take.
Canada is clearly unhappy about what's happening with Greenland. And last week, we saw their prime minister fly to Beijing, meet with Chinese officials, and agree to a range of Chinese demands, agreeing to start importing Chinese EVs and to begin manufacturing Chinese EVs on Canadian soil. What is going on with that? Trump is hedging his bets, hedging America's bets, and good riddance. All right, that's it for this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.